what we do is we look at the time you receive an order to the time you collect the cash, and we look to reduce that time frame so you're unlocking profitability.
All those different issues that are unique to distribution, having the ability to look into your inventory in order to see what inventory is being allocated, to see what your lead time is to replenish your inventory, is all done in an extremely efficient process.
The added benefit that we bring to the table is that visibility across the entire organization, where everybody can speak with confidence about where an order is at any given time.
The ordering process, whether it's the pick, pack, and ship process.
We supercharge that entire process. We take things that might be 10 clicks in other systems, we put it into 1 or 2 screens with 3 or less clicks to get that information.
We're going to help you tap into that untapped profitability by making your process much more lean, much more efficient. And so that's what we're all about.
SalesPad, the #1 enterprise software solution to extend the life of your Microsoft Dynamics GP system.
Please welcome our next speaker, John Kirsch, a Dynamics GP product lead. Today, he will be presenting his session, Where is GP Now and What's Next? Please stick around after John's session for a live Q&A.
Hello everybody, and thanks for joining my session here at DynamicsCon. You are at the session for Where is GP Now and What's Next? So happy to be a part of DynamicsCon today, and thank you everybody who voted and voted for my session or others. I'm glad to see all the participation and interest, and I'm happy to be a part of it. So we'll get started right away here. A little bit of introduction about myself here. So I've been working with GP for over 22 years, currently the GP product lead at Dynamic Consulting. So I've used GP over the years in a lot of different ways, and happy to share some of that experience here. Where I've used it, definitely been a user of GP for a number of years. I've actually worked at 3 different companies that have used GP. Some of the different roles I've had in using GP, I've been a controller, IT manager, as well as a number of other IT positions that I've held over time. And most recently been a number of years as a consultant here working with GP. Some of the other experience on the personal side, I am a husband and father of 5 kids. So definitely keeping very busy with all the events that are going on, and happy to be a part of all their different interests and having fun doing that over the years. A few other things, Dynamics GP certifications. I've had several over the years. With my IT and accounting background, I've been able to work on the functional and technical side, so have obtained some certifications in both areas. I presented at a number of different places, so happy to again be part of another topic here and be able to share some information. A couple of other things here. I've been on the board of directors at Golden House in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So something very proud to be a part of that organization and working with the group there. Recently was elected in the vice president position there. Golden House is a domestic violence shelter and advocacy program here in Green Bay and Brown County. And a very important agency, helpful for those in need in the community, and something that's very kind of near and dear to my heart. So happy to be able to help out with a very important cause there. And last, just kind of having some fun there with it, but having no idea what free time means. I like staying busy, whether that's working with the kids and having fun with the kids, or some of the other nonprofit and involvement things. Like to be using my time. So not a lot of free time, but that's by design. So have some fun with that. All right. Well, we'll jump into the topic here. Enough about me. What this topic is really about, if you're joining and have the title and read the description, a better way to summarize it from my perspective is we're talking about education in this one. So we're talking about where GP is at. So what's the versions? What does the roadmap look like? What's coming up? and really what can we do with GP? So what are the technologies that work with it? What else can we integrate or use with the system? So this is going to be a pretty broad brush, but again, one of those sessions that we're really looking at just sharing information, and ultimately the bottom point, you'll hear me say this a couple of times here, in maximizing your investment. That's what this is about. So you have GP, you're using it, maybe you can use a little bit more. Maybe you just want to know, what does that look like going forward to continue to take advantage of what's working for you. So as we get started here, I'd like to have a little bit of fun with technology. And so with that, I thought about some of as we talk about what works with GP and what doesn't, and we've had a lot of fun with movies over the years, kind of predicting what technology would be like, and Back to the Future is one of the most notable ones, as we compared a few years back in 2015 of what matched up. But I was thinking about that of kind of almost the then and now and where are we going type thing. And it's pretty remarkable, going through a few of these slides here, pictures. We had, pictures of meeting on phone. That's been a pretty good summary of this past year, right? Teams meeting and Zoom and everything else that we've been using. So that was, maybe a few years off, but a huge change in our environment. Total Recall there, I believe, is the movie. And anytime we think of Arnold Schwarzenegger, we think of a couple of different movies. So Total Recall with a self-driving car. We don't quite have the mannequins, but that technology is certainly coming around right now. We also think about Terminators, though, so luckily that hasn't come through, right? But think about these things that in the 80s when these were created seemed like a pretty far off dream, but flat screen TVs, which was nowhere around in the 80s, that was a pretty good call. I think this was a video call, but kind of thinking of HoloLens, that looks pretty familiar actually. No flying cars, hoverboards, or self-tying shoes though. So, there's still a few misses in there, but, we look at how far technology has come and what we can do with it. And it makes us think, are we taking advantage of all the technology and new pieces and, environment that's out there that we can really maximize our investment. So, thinking of that, our first step really is going to, in this session, is just kind of looking at the overall technologies and what we're using and what can we use. And so this is just a start of a list of what we're probably all using in some fashion or another in our businesses. So obviously ERP, we're focused on GP in these sessions, so that kind of checks the box on the top left there. But we're certainly looking at different email platforms, whether that's M365 or others. We're integrating that with GP and other software solutions. Office is also obviously a big part of GP. We look at file storage and SharePoint and OneDrive. Those are changing, and we have a lot more online storage, but really largely have a combination for most people. And then we look at a lot of other tools. As I jump to the right side again, Teams has been essential, or a similar type platform here over the past year with COVID and everything else going on. Our virtual meetings and events. It's really enabled us to function for a lot of our roles, even though we've been remote or not able to see people in person. So the huge impact that those technologies have had. And then, we start to think maybe some of the newer things that not everybody's using as much yet, but certainly becoming more Azure or other online platforms, Stream for video sharing, for conferences or other training. We need a nice tool to be able to share videos, and that's Microsoft's product if you're not using that. And then we're going to really get into some of the other pieces we'll talk about, like workflow and Power Automate, and then have a few other pieces. And I even listed Dynamics Con because I think it's important to stop and think about not only the tools that we have installed or we're using on a day-to-day basis, but there are a ton of other technology tools like websites, like LinkedIn type, where we're making business connections or we're sharing our company information. There are so many other technology pieces that we take for granted right now. and these technologies can leverage those or help tie them together. So it's important for us to step back. Again, we're going to jump into the GP product here too, but what else can we use our overall technology strategy, and how do we make that work? So one more slide here on that general topic is really thinking about, spending a minute or two thinking about the hybrid world as I listed it here. But on the left-hand side, talking about how we're using or how our networks are structured. We do have the on-prem standard setup that's been over time. So we have a server and a workstation, and GP is installed and used on those. So certainly works perfectly fine, and the way the majority are installed. And we also have VPN for remote working, and one of the things with that is we've always controlled those updates. So we choose when GP gets upgraded, when patches are applied, when other software is updated as well, in that full control. And so a good controlled environment, and has worked well for a lot of time. I'm going to jump all the way over to the right on the cloud side of it. So a difference with the cloud is subscriptions and using it more as a service, right? So it's always remote. Even if you're in the office, we're really connecting out to the cloud, but we're able to use it really anywhere. It's much more mobile, and one of the big differences is auto updating and things getting updated every year or multiple times a year, and just a different way of looking at that those updates are really part of your service. And last is the hybrid world, as I have it labeled here. So in reality, most companies that I work with are in that hybrid mode already, right? So we're using maybe GP on premise, so it's installed on your servers and workstations, maybe using Office 365, and your email is on there, so that's in the cloud, and maybe some other combinations in there. So that is a really great advantage for companies to be able to, as I label their business continuity, to be able to step in to take advantage of those products that can really work well, and at the same time not disrupt and have to do a re-implementation. So that hybrid world, again, where a lot of us or most of us may live right now, is a really key piece with GP and with leveraging the newest technologies. So with that kind of broad brush and technology scope, let's jump into the details of GP. So important to understand as part of kind of your planning and your use of the software is, what version are you on, and what should we, be on as far as a supported version right now. So up in the upper left there, we've got the basic details where we talk about the supported versions. So GP 2016 is on mainstream support until July of this year. So we are coming up to the end, which means the year end is not going to have tax updates or any other bug fixes or anything coming out for GP 2016 or older. So if you are on any of those versions, it is recommended to look at and start planning for an upgrade to be on one of those supported versions. And we'll talk about some of those advantages coming up here. I do have below that listed GP 2018 and then Dynamics GP. So if you're not familiar with the last part of that, Dynamics GP is really the current versions now going forward. As of October of 2019, the release removed the year number, and we're essentially building on that 2018 version. So essentially, if you're on the latest supported version, it's the latter there, the Dynamics GP, and we'll also refer to it as either the October 2020 release or 18.3. So that's really our targeted point of where to be right now in terms of the current version, with really the GP 2016 coming to the end of mainstream support and being on the supported versions. And just to call out, this slide and the next one is going to go a little bit more in detail around that modern support lifecycle. So what that is the schedule, and it's probably a little bit hard to read on the slides there, but on the right hand side is a little excerpt of the hyperlink that you see underlined there, and that goes to Microsoft's site talking about the GP releases. And so this was put out, and you'll see in there a schedule right now updated through 2024 with releases coming out every October and at least 2 times a year where we get the tax updates and some of the other bug fixes that get released. So feature releases once a year, and other tax and related releases throughout the year as needed. So that's important to note, and in that, again, with the GP versioning building from 18.3 to 18.4 this year will be much more of an update versus an upgrade type scenario. So I have that called out on this slide here because that's an important piece for us to understand. So why did I spend a little time before talking about the cloud and those automatic updates? Well, that's because you can think of the GP updates going forward a little bit more like that cloud type cadence. And in that is we're doing much more incremental updates to GP versus that larger upgrade. Like going from GP 2016 to the latest release is a bit more of a project. Typically we'd have a test upgrade and go through all the steps of testing and making sure that's in place. For a majority of environments, that annual update, and you may already be doing that with your year-end update, is something that a lot of times we don't do a test update with it. We're able to just do the proper backups and do that update. So much more important for even those that haven't been doing that annual year-end update, that you be able to, going forward, apply that each year, take advantage of all the latest releases, and kind of avoid that bigger upgrade project in the future. So much easier to stay up to date and take advantage, much more quickly at times than in the past of those new features that are coming out. So a couple other things I'd like to call out here around releases and updates and upgrades. The idea site is linked here, and again, as you get the slides and have that access, these hyperlinks will all work for you. Certainly happy to answer some questions. We'll be having live Q&A at the end of this, so if you've got some questions now or as we get into that Q&A session, please feel free to submit those, and we'll answer questions around this too. But the idea site is out there where a lot of the ideas, the top feature requests are coming from in the new updates that are coming out. So if there's a piece of GP that you would like to work a little bit differently, or that maybe a filter or a view or something isn't in the system and you want to add that in there for usability, that's a great place to add that. And if others agree, they can go and vote and try to raise that request to a higher level. So even if you don't have an idea yourself to submit, feel free to go out there and can browse around or search for ones that you agree with and also add votes to those. So a great way to be a part of those releases and get some of the solutions that you're looking for. And a couple of the resources I'd like to share, again, as this session is a piece of the education that you may be looking for updates and upgrades and planning. But a great resource there in the Dynamics GP Support and Services blog is that is a site where some of the folks from Microsoft are blogging and giving information, talking about the releases, what's new. Sometimes if bugs are coming out, that there's an update that's needed for it. That's a resource that's out there. A recent article that just came out talking about access to customer source, because there's some changes on the way the website's going to work and where you go for that. So a great site to have bookmarked and use as you're working through, whether it be GP upgrades or just general kind of staying up to date with what's going on. And then on the bottom, there's another link there for what's new in Dynamics GP documentation. So that is really on the Microsoft Dynamics Docs site. So that is the key place to go for information on product information, not only what's new, but kind of the virtual handbook or manual for the software as well is in the Microsoft Docs site. So that link will take you there and be able to, if you are upgrading or looking at upgrading, give you a chance to browse through what's new or what you can take advantage of in the system. So with that, just a couple more slides, and these highlight some of the information of what's been released on the couple of last versions, And I actually got this from one of the blogs that was on the GP support blog. So thanks for those, to be able to grab those and easily put those in. And I brought those over and I highlighted a couple of things from each one of the updates that for me, I've seen, good usage and an impact made. But for everybody, there's obviously different pieces that everybody's looking for that you can take advantage of. So calling out first on the financial elements there, the 1099 season is kind of wrapping up or wrapped up here now. So we had the new NEC form, and so that was obviously a big deal that we needed to, for those submitting 1099s through GP, needed to have that new form available and new tracking and have that all be accurate. So an important addition that was put in with the year-end update this year. On the right-hand side, kind of keeping a balance between functional and technical, multi-factor authentication pieces were added in for emailing. And that's an important piece security-wise for those involved in securing your email or your systems. Multi-factor is becoming a very popular piece for most authentication, but especially for email. And so a much needed piece, I think, from a security factor to be able to work with that a little bit more efficiently. So a key technology piece released, and obviously you can read through and go out to the blog site to read through the other ones. I also called out down on the bottom the fix for Word templates. So referencing the blog site for Microsoft GP support, that was an issue that was put out there this fall. And the fix was put out in 18.3. It was also put out in the GP 2016 year-end update, but a very important fix, as some of the security changes in Word caused some issues with the Word templates, and certainly a needed update for many to get that in place. So if you're having problems with Word templates, I'll just call that, while not listed as an enhancement, was a key fix for Word compatibility that just came out recently. So one more slide here, again, going back to the release that came out in October of 2019. And you can see a bigger list on these slides in terms of the features that were released. Again, I called out a couple of things. First, we've had the description field that had limited characters in the payables transaction entry. I highlighted this because I literally within the last week or two have had a couple of conversations of how we can take advantage of this field, whether for reporting or internal tracking. And again, a very nice addition to the screen there that allows some different usages even really to help enhance the system. And on the right hand side, I think one of the biggest pieces, and we see with updates, and we really rely on almost without thinking about, but one of the most important pieces is staying current on the technologies. And so I called out the compatibility with SQL Server 2019 and Windows Server 2019. Just with that alone, we're on a platform with GP on the newest release that is on a base platform of SQL and Windows that are supported for I believe 10 years or so from now. So we've got a solid platform that we know we can continue to use and enhance GP's usage on for a number of years. So really important that happens, but that we know that and that we're taking advantage of those new technologies. So that's kind of where GP is at version wise, and again a piece to kind of do a little bit more info gathering, get the details of some of those enhancements. But what I want to talk about kind of lastly in this area is GP in the cloud and working from anywhere. So we've certainly had the disruption of COVID and some of the need for mobile and remote work, and a lot have been doing that over time, and I think it got accelerated for many over the past year. And so with that, there's been a lot of questions over the past year and a lot of changes and implementing new strategies to enhance that remote work and working from anywhere type environment. And so we get the question often, can GP be used in the cloud? What does it take to use GP in the cloud? And so the short answer is that GP running anywhere is essentially using the same environment. So I have listed on the top hosted environment. So if we were using GP in the cloud, we are going to have a SQL server. We are going to have a remote desktop or web client server. Now there are some virtual machines, kind of similar to a remote desktop, but essentially we're having a client workstation running. And then we are going to have some sort of authentication. Domain controller most typically might be tied in with Azure Domain. Azure AD now is a possibility, but some way to authenticate so that we're able to also use Active Directory for some of the security components. Lastly, we don't necessarily have to have that environment synced with our on-premise applications or Active Directory environment. So we could be logging into that as a separate secure area, or we could have it synced and tied in with the rest of our domain. So a lot of flexibility around using that and being able to take advantage of what suits best your environment. So getting back to the question, can you use GP in the cloud and what can you use it on? Azure, AWS, the Google, a service provider, private cloud. The answer is really yes. We can set up GP in anywhere we can create that hosted environment, or where somebody's essentially providing that hosted environment for you, like a service provider or GP hosting partner. So we certainly can take advantage of GP and use it in the cloud. The great thing about that is, we can still keep those ISVs, we can move those into a cloud. We're basically taking your server environment and lifting it up into the cloud and just running those servers somewhere else. So, that is certainly a possibility and something that many are taking advantage of. So what else does that mean, working from anywhere, and what are others doing? What's some of the common questions right now? So as we've needed to or been forced to at times work from out of the office, one of the ways, even if we're not working with a hosted solution, we can take advantage of remote desktop, publish apps, web clients, or with a VPN involved in that or not at times, able to use GP. Even if it's on-prem, we can still use those sharing tools and be able to use GP from anywhere. So there's certainly a way, without going cloud, to still be able to add that remote working capability. Some of the other common things, workflow has certainly been a big topic over the past year. It's been increasing more and more with GP, but as we've not been routing paper as much, as we've been looking at, how do we, especially AP transactions, how do we approve those before they get paid and handle that routing? The workflow has been a great tool to be able to set up email approval and track that information, even attach documents as needed, and be able to share that information virtually and do that without being in the office and accomplish the same goals. One of the other things, kind of increasing the extensive email capabilities, as I put it there, so largely focused around eliminating or reducing the amount of printing that we need to do. So whether, maybe you were already emailing sales invoices, but now we wanted to start emailing vendor remittances or order acknowledgments or purchase orders. There are email capabilities in almost every area of the system. So certainly some advantages or some areas that you might be able to take advantage of that you're not using now. Electronic payments have certainly been also a huge topic. Eliminating the check printing or streamlining the check printing process is a big part of that. And being able to set up and use EFT is a big piece that can help, again, get away from the paper handling or passing things between individuals. So electronic payments, EFTs within GP, or we'll talk about even some of the third parties that might be involved in something like that. And then the next couple of topics here, kind of leading into our next section, but we'll talk a bit more, Power BI especially being a big one. in the Power Platform in general, being able to add on even more cloud technologies that work directly with GP. But before we get to that, I've just got a simple slide here. I just called out all of those, and that's certainly not the full list of working remotely features that are available in GP. Kind of a big shout out to one of the strengths of GP over the years is the huge and very committed ISV and partner channel that's out there. And there are so many solutions that we don't have time for in a less than hour session here to talk about, but there are a number, and a majority, I would say, of solutions that go with GP now that have that cloud or work from anywhere piece already incorporated into it. Large pieces around, again, we were talking about the AP process just before, the AP process and payment processing, to document scanning and approvals, to almost any area of GP. There are a large number of ISVs that can help with the electronic and cloud version of integrations that can go with GP. So I don't want to forget them. I'm also going to be running out of time if I spend too much talking about them. So if there's a solution that you're not finding inside of GP, there's likely some add-ons that could help you with that. So kind of, just reviewing where we've been, talking about the GP product and how we use it and what the versions are. So now I want to work forward into the Dynamics platform though. And so as I just mentioned before, one of the big pieces here with the platform is the Power Platform. And so within Dynamics, there are several tools. We're not going to spend too much talking about the CRM in my session here. There's certainly plenty of information at DynamicsCon to search out and get some more information around that as well. But we're going to kind of hone in on a couple areas, and the first being Power Platform. So with this, we're able to, again, kind of extend GP into the cloud and take advantage of the features that are out there. And first, starting on the left, we'll just work our way across. Powerapps is a kind of low to no code development tool, so we can create custom, whether it be integrations, data handling, wherever your mind takes you with your GP data and structure, and allow you to create those applications to be able to use. And the good thing with that is, that might be just reading data. It might be interacting with another system other than GP and pulling the information together. There's hundreds of connectors for all of these tools that we can do kind of those custom pieces with. So that's your kind of app creation piece. Power BI, probably the biggest one out of this list as far as usage right now with GP, is your dashboard or KPI reporting. Most have heard or maybe even used a little bit of Power BI. There is, again, DynamicsCon information available here if you look at the other sessions and the other tracks available to be able to go search some of that out. But a great tool to be able to do that dashboard reporting and to make it available anywhere. So with a small subscription fee, we can share that information and essentially access that anywhere. Last couple of pieces, Power Automate is its own workflow automation tool. So kind of just finished talking about some of the GP workflow pieces that are built in. There's not something that fits your needs inside of that. You may be able to take advantage of the Power Automate and create your own workflow. And so that allows us, again, similar to Powerapps, we can interact with the GP data, we can read from it, we can write back to it, based on the rules that we set up and approval processes and things like that, that we can interact with the GP data through some custom workflow. And the last one, I haven't used too much, so I'll not spend too much time, but we've probably all had some interactions with chatbots, if I could say that, coming up on websites. But that allows you to take advantage of that technology and to be able to kind of create, again, similar to like workflows, create your own handling of that communication. So another piece on that Power Platform to take advantage of. So moving on from the Power Platform, one of the other big topics of conversation is Business Central. So, most have probably heard about it, but if not, we're gonna start at kind of a basic level and talk about it just a little bit. And so I've got some small pieces of information on the slide here. I guess I've got my pet peeve on the top. And so the first piece I have there is Business Central is not an upgrade. So I've seen this term used a lot, and it's not an upgrade in terms of GP. So there are certainly tools. We'll talk about some of the tools about moving to Business Central or migrating to Business Central. So maybe I'm a little picky on the terminology, but Business Central is its own ERP solution, so it's different software, which in my definition does not qualify as an upgrade. But it is a small business, small to medium-sized business cloud ERP. And so a couple of the underlying points, if you're not familiar with it, it is a completely software as a service offering from Microsoft. So what that means is we're able to subscribe to it by users, log in to the environment, use the software, but we're not, when using it that way, we're not installing servers. We're really using it on that kind of rental or subscription basis. So able to use that. The background of Business Central is NAV or Navision before that. So really the base came from the NAV product and was developed into the web version of Business Central over the last several years. So it's built and run in Azure. So Microsoft is able to provide that again as a SaaS solution, where us as partners or other environments are not needing to kind of set up or manage that environment. It's completely SaaS offering through Microsoft. So one of the differences we were just talking about with online solutions is that they are automatically updated as part of the service. So with Business Central, there are 2 major updates that happen each year. And so those updates are pushing out feature releases that are able to get the new enhancements, and those happen automatically as part of your service, so we don't have to install those updates. With those updates and the overall tools, the GP migration tool has been released to help with a possible migration from GP to Business Central, to be able to use that as part of your implementation or migration project. So what that tool does is migrate some or a good portion of your data up from GP to Business Central. So that tool can be used to handle a good portion of that. There are some pieces that it does not migrate. So it's all part of a plan that needs to be developed if there was a decision made to move to Business Central. So that is, going back up to the top point, one of the key pieces, I think, in understanding if you are interested in moving to a cloud solution like Business Central. So this slide will give a little bit of information then on what it would look like to migrate to Business Central if that is the decision to move into a cloud SaaS offering. So with that, the most important step to start out is that evaluation of functionality. So again, Business Central is a different software than GP, so not all the features and functionality is the same. So any decision would require a evaluation to make sure that the functionality that you would want or need is in the software. So it's really important to complete that step. And one other piece to mention about the evaluation is, this is a very active kind of step where a lot of folks are in, and Microsoft is reaching out and offering evaluations in some situations to GP customers. And so that's an important step to have if you're considering that, but not something that is needed if you're happy with GP and where the functionality is. As we talked about, we certainly have current versions and new ones coming up that are there to continue to meet the needs. So, if there's an evaluation, it's a great opportunity to work with your partner and, gather information and see what that looks like for you in the future. So if you do go through that evaluation step and say, yes, this is a good situation for me and move forward, it's really moving into a pretty standard implementation project. We're going to talk about business requirements to fully document the system and build that out. Data migration, which may or may not use that migration tool, as we were just talking about. And we're going to have training and testing and go live. So all standard steps that we would do in a project, and we would want to make sure to go through all of those type of steps to successfully move to that cloud offering. And a couple of notes there, just for, if nothing else, terminology's sakes. The ISVs, which is, again, is a huge part of GP. There are now apps, or we're going to use the Microsoft Store and App Source to be able to find some of those add-ons. So just a different terminology and wording with cloud. And then lastly, extensions are kind of the customizations. So we have this offering here, just to summarize kind of Business Central. We do have this offering. It's talked about a lot with the GP kind of environment right now, and is certainly a good option if we're looking for a true SaaS and cloud offering. We just want to make sure to do our due diligence and make sure we've got a project and a solution lined up to make that switch. All right, so what's next? Kind of wrapping up our session here. Again, we'll be starting the live Q&A just after this here, so happy to answer some of the questions. But back on the GP and the related technologies here, what is your plan is ultimately the takeaway. This doesn't have to be difficult. It's pretty straightforward. If we're using GP, if we're happy with GP, or maybe need just one or two more pieces that we could improve and make a little bit better, well, that's great. Let's get on the current version. So that's the first bullet point in what we talked about. Let's get on the version. Let's get on a plan to keep that version updated every year. And then, let's look for those, training enhancements. If it's not, in the system, again, we can take advantage of those ISV solutions. But, we've got, a very straightforward plan in that now the releases are coming out once a year. We know we can keep updated with those and take advantage of all those new features. I do want to say thank you. Thank you again, especially for those that voted for this session, and for everybody attending. Happy to kick over to the live Q&A here and answer any questions that you may have. So thank you very much for attending. We'll talk to you live here.
Hey everybody, this is Amber, Bell, and John. Hey John.
Hey Amber, how are you?
Good. Me and John have been in the backstage, like reading all the questions, getting things ready. And so John, what I thought I could do is, could I just read you some of these questions and we can knock them out?
Yeah, let's get started.
Okay, so it was really exciting to see. This was a really active session. We had a lot of people commenting and asking questions. So the first question was by Michael. Michael said, have you heard about any updates or changes to the web client?
All right, so I saw that, did a little bit of thinking because that was one of the earlier questions. There are a few things that have been released on, a couple of the last versions. So we've seen that come out with that what's new documentation that we did reference. So as soon as these slides and all the materials come available, you can certainly download that. Again, those are linked. So like to make sure you can easily get to those. I'm not, I guess, privy or don't know too much more if what's coming up in the future one. So I'd say once we've gotten to the HTML version and a few kind of nice tweaks to that after that, that's been kind of the main extent of the updates. So I don't expect any major changes from what I do know, but there's been some of those usability enhancements in the web client as well. Yeah. So I definitely recommend the what's new documentation to kind of keep track of that.
And one thing I did while people were asking questions, you mentioned that all your slides are going to be, when they put this presentation on YouTube, the slides will be there with your live links. I tried to put some of those in the chat. One of the ones I put was the GP Ideas site. So that's where people can vote for changes and things like that. So I'd suggest that if someone is using something like the web client and they have some ideas, put it out there and then let everybody know on the user group forums that you've put out a suggestion. That'll help out too.
All right, thanks. Yes, great idea.
Okay. Excuse me. The next one, as I cough and fall over, was Pamela asked, does Microsoft still offer Dynamics GP training? How do I get consultants trained on new features and processes? What are your thoughts on that? I want to stand back because I could tell you what I think.
Yeah, I know somebody on here that does a lot of training, but
Yeah.
I think for a couple different angles there a little bit too. So for users, for sure, again, the what's new documentation, take advantage of what's out there. There's a lot of materials online too. A lot of folks try to blog about those things, and certainly ways to stay up to date. From a partner perspective, we certainly offer with updates, like to offer some what's new training. Usually then that's geared more towards what you're actually using in GP. So you can kind of hone in on that and have a little session to talk about what you can use in there. So I definitely recommend working with the updates if you're working with your partner to use some time there, and then also use some of those resources. A little different perspective mentioning the partner side of it then I think too. I don't think Microsoft offers anything. I know we used to in the past take advantage of advisory hours and things like that. I think there's still some available, but some of that stuff has changed so much. I'm not sure. Amber, you maybe know a little bit more, or otherwise, I think Amber would be a good resource to work with as well.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll say is, I'll tell you how I keep up with it is, I do keep up with the Microsoft blogs, and a lot of times they do have examples and screenshots, and then I update my test company and I practice, and then I try to blog, and then I keep the training materials that I have through Dynamics. The Doug Skill Up is latest version. That will be updated. But then also, like I said, if you can go on to the what's new, but not just the what's new that we linked there, but the blog, which I think, John, did you link to the blog in your thing as well, right?
Yeah, I did have the GP support blog. Whenever it's coming up to update time, there will be releases kind of on each module and feature. So usually there's a blog that kind of links, groups them by module, and then you can drill into each one of the features. So.
Yeah. So definitely there's not the traditional, like when I was learning GP, there was like more of the GP University. There was things like that. There's not that as much, but there are ways to learn, and always reach out to, offline. You could reach out to me on LinkedIn or email me, and I'll tell you guys how I learn it. And if I can help you, I'd be love to. The next question was by Nicholas. Nicholas, now this is fighting words, so everybody put your fists down. But it's a valid question. Nicholas said, see, I'm best friends with Nick. I called him Nick. But his name's Nicholas. Nicholas said, at this point for long term, isn't it better to convince customers to migrate towards Business Central? I have my thoughts, but this is your session. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll speak to it from the partner perspective and the customer perspective a little bit, because so part of my background, I think I mentioned it earlier, I've worked at 3 different companies that have used GP, and now doing consulting work, I put myself in the shoes of the customer that I'm working with at the time. So from that perspective, it depends. There are reasons to switch software, and I think if I just run them down, I have my top 3. I mean, if your software isn't working for you, you're going to be looking to switch regardless of anything else, right? So that's number 1. It has to do what you need it to do. Number 2, you need software that is current and runs on current technology. Well, we covered that in the session, right? We're on the latest release of SQL and Windows, and will be supported for, I think again 2030 I think is the timeline for those platforms, and obviously GP is getting updates as well for years, so that's not a problem. And kind of the last, we do need support from partners or directly from Microsoft, and again, not an issue from the numbers that are registered for this and everybody presenting. I mean, there's a strong channel that continues to thrive and support GP. So there's none of the top indicators to say that you have to switch off of GP.
Yeah.
So, beyond that, might you have reasons, different, needs, business change? Of course, those things can certainly happen. I see a lot of the terminology GP versus BC or whatever. They're different products, and there's
Yeah.
good fits for both. And so everybody should be educated, I feel, and look for those right solutions. But nobody should be forced or feeling forced to move off of the platform at all right now.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just add my 2 cents on this, checking our time because we've got about 10 minutes and we get kicked out. We don't want to step on anybody's toes. But I will say that I'm working on blogs about this, that if someone tries to put you in a situation where you feel fear about the future of GP, that person isn't, that's not a good way to do it. Even if it does fit better for what your desire is, or it just fits better for your long-term goals, that's something to talk about. Nick mentioned, he said, like the next 3 to 4 years. And it looked like people on the boards were, on the chats were saying, there's going to be support for GP out. And like you just said, there's support for GP out. So I think that this is definitely something where if you had a reason to change, then talk about it with your partner, and they'll know also your full solution and what they've done to make it work. And if they can answer what they've done to make it work and make it work better, with GP, with ISVs, like you mentioned, that's good. If BC is a great fit for you, it's great. But you notice we aren't saying either one's bad or either one's perfect. It's a conversation, and it's a big decision, and it's not anything to rush someone to switching to BC just because BC is available. Okay. Next,
the last thing, sorry, Amber, I'm going to throw one more kind of comment into what you said, because that's a really good point in terms of timing of it too. So, if you've been looking, and that's where I kind of categorize that under the education is, maybe both are a pretty good fit, and you have reasons to want to switch somewhere down the road. I definitely, think we want to stay informed of what's going on, but what's going to change if we talk about, again, using GP for 3 years or 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, whatever the number is, but with 2 releases a year and investment going into it, if there's not a great fit right now, if there's not a need for any changes right now, 5 years from now, things will be different. Technology changes so fast, and the solution could be so much different, better, different. We don't know what that is, but certainly time is only going to kind of favor the functionality of ongoing changes that are going on.
Yeah. One of the other people mentioned was that the ISV marketplace for GP, some of those are not moved over to Business Central. So if you are looking for something to kind of replace what you're doing in GP and you are using ISVs, again, those are conversations you need to have, rather than just saying, I heard about Business Central, it's time for me to move. It's a big, big decision. So check it out. And then, like I said, GP is out there. It's supported. It's great. It's wonderful. Okay. I'm going to just ask the rest of these real quick. Somebody said, we are on GP 2018 R2. How painful is it to make the jump to the most current version?
Well, I talked about it a little bit in the session of that annual release. So from my perspective, again, my goals for maintaining GP, I'd recommend to basically apply the year-end update. It doesn't have to be done right at that time, but staying current each year. So that means right now from R2, there's really 2 of those year-end releases, if you will, but that is a direct update that will apply. At some point, there might be too many of those in between if you keep skipping years, though. I can't say for sure right now, but I would say, as far as that's kind of like applying to year-end updates. So in general, as a consultant and applying those, we don't typically do a year-end update on a majority of systems. So throw a couple of terms around there, because if you don't have a lot of ISVs, I think there were some answers around that too. Typical, strong ISVs, we'll do those year-end updates in place, just do good backups before, and it's not a terribly painful update, if you will. But we don't want to go too many years of not applying that and then turn that into a full-fledged upgrade. So highly recommend annual update now, stay current, and it kind of helps you to take advantage of those features faster and avoid that bigger project.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if you wait if you wait for a long time, it's going to make you're not saving money. You're just making it more complicated. And so better to keep up with those. Somebody said, Jeff Wright keeps saying GP rules. We got GP lives. There's more ISVs available. So some people, great session. Let me just see. Gerald wants to know, are you more Star Trek or Star Wars? This is really important.
Oh, Star Wars for sure. I've watched both, but definitely Star Wars.
Okay. And then somebody said their suggestion for things in web client. Will Microsoft provide? Okay, that's about the training. So then, awesome session yesterday. Blah blah blah. Marketplace for the training. Feature of the day is a good resource when there's new items, and that is true. So definitely the Microsoft folks are trying to keep up with letting you know about them, and that's how I learn. I learn it and then I do it. So I have a test company and then I try to document it even more. So if you are a partner, or even if you aren't a partner and you have access to a test company that can do the update first or the upgrade first, then you can learn GP. That's, to me, hands-on is how I do it. So
it's like the only two, I think it's two now, or is it just one? The only RSS feeds I subscribe to are the Microsoft support update ones, because we get plenty of emails and stuff coming through, but that's one that I can go to and see what's going on. So I guess that's my tip of the day.
Yeah. So we saw a couple of people reached out to Jeff saying that, they can help him with the upgrade. So Jeff, if it definitely, I know there's lots of us on here. I suggested putting a tab on your computer and adding LinkedIn and searching everybody that's presenting in events and the events, and we can help you. And there's other people on here that you can add on LinkedIn and reach out to them offline, and they can talk to you about their suggestions, the partner they're working with. If they're a partner, they can give you information. And if you have a great partner, always go to them first. We always want to suggest you work with your partner that but there's always people out here that can help you. And somebody asked, did everyone get full functionality for the NEC forms with the year-end update? GP did make it work with the NEC forms. I had clients that were able to print the NEC forms. Trisha, did you have issues with that? And John, did you have issues with the NEC form?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I saw is, there needed the security update if that didn't get applied right away because of the new form and being able to print that report that comes out. So I saw, a couple of follow-ups where we had to make sure that was put in place. But beyond that, and also just kind of understanding that window because we aren't used to having the other option in there. So I think just, a little bit of training, a little bit of security changes once that update was applied. And my experience went that, things went pretty smoothly with it from the clients that I worked with.
Yeah. And one thing I had a client who I didn't realize they had customized their NEC form. So when it updated, it wasn't doing things the right way. So if you've used Report Writer and customized your old 1099 form, there may be some changes back to the original and then re-putting your customizations in there. We've only got about 2 minutes left. We've got some folks from Nolan said they've helped people that did the upgrade. Jeff, you listed all your things. Some of these people I know are sponsors, so get free support. Go to their booth and tell them that you're thinking about upgrading, and they'll help you. I highly recommend during events getting free support by going into those booths and asking them questions. But I think we got all the main questions. Did you see? Oh, we had nothing but issues. Alignment printing. Good to know it was isolated. Yeah, and it might have been, Trisha, might have been the actual printer. I did have a client that needed a little bit of alignment change. It could have been the printer. Mike says we got to wrap up. Okay, thank you guys for coming. John, do you have anything you want to say? This is your session. Anything else?
No, thanks everybody as well. We'll try not to have a hard time saying goodbye on this one. So,
Yeah.
All right, thanks everybody. Hope everybody has a great day. Bye.